Should we call this meeting to order, please?
Sure thing.
Now, Kate, I'm going to let you, you're controlling the radio station, so you're going to be the principal person running this show. But I know we're going to start today because of time constraints with first David Knopf, and then we're going to go to Jim Cameron because of their time commitments. They have conference calls coming up.
I'm actually not seeing David on the call at the moment, so I say, let's go to Jim.
All right, Jim, you're up. And Jim, you're mute.
And for anyone watching, Jim Cameron will speak about TV 79, just so we clarify what the department is presenting. Thank you.
No longer mute. I at the quarterly report to the Board of Selectmen about what we're doing at TV 79. There's only two things I would highlight on there. The first is we did a viewer survey in February, which had very good results. It showed that our audience is strong, that they're not only watching meetings that have been recorded and they can replay them on Vimeo, which is very convenient, but they're also tuning into the cable channel itself. So there's good stats in there. I'd encourage you to take a look at it if you haven't had a chance. The other thing I would highlight is the project that we're undertaking in room 206. We're using some grant money from the Area 9 Cable Council to put two large flat screen televisions in room 206 and a third in the lobby of Town Hall to replace the one that's been down there for about 10 years now. The ones in 206, I think, are going to be useful because I'm of a mind that we're going to see a hybrid model going forward, even after we're back to meeting in person in Town Hall. There may be participants, presenters, members of the public who would like to participate in meetings virtually, and these displays will allow them to do that. It will also allow people who are making presentations in room 206 to be able to plug their laptops in and show them in crystal clear digital quality on the wall instead of trying to project it off of a LCD projector. So that project is underway. We're still waiting for a PO to be signed off by Public Works to pay for some of the installation costs. Happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Are there any questions of Jim?
There's no questions, Jim. We wanted to thank you and your team. You have made going virtual seamless, and we thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for taking me first too. I appreciate it.
You bet. All right. Thank you, Jim. Next up will be David Knopf from the Health Department because he also has an early morning call. David?
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Since I submitted my report to the Board of Selectmen, there have been many updates, none the least of which was the governor's press conference yesterday, where he announced that there's going to be a considerable relaxation of the restrictions that have been in effect for really the past year. Business curfews effective May 1st, business curfews, restaurants, entertainment venues can stay open until midnight. Outdoor restrictions are going to be lifted. They'll be able to have alcohol be served without food outdoors, and there's no table size limit. Currently it's at 8. On the 19th of May, at that point, the only current restriction that will be in effect is indoor masking. Outdoor remaining business restrictions will end. I suppose that means we could start looking at having in-person meetings if that's what we choose. We'll be talking about parades, Memorial Day parades in particular. But DPH will continue and will be issuing recommendations for indoor and large outdoor events. I'm sure they'll have some comments and guidance for graduations. Another addition to the report is that high school students now are eligible for vaccine, and we've made an arrangement with CHC, the community health centers located in Stamford, to offer vaccine to all students 16 and older. That's been scheduled, and there's a sign-up sheet that's on our website, on the town website, So anybody 16 and over can sign up and go to that clinic where Pfizer's being offered to kids that are 16 and older. That was just announced yesterday. Since January 20th, we've held 28 vaccination clinics and vaccinated and issued and done 5,400 vaccination doses. It's a tribute to the volunteers, the volunteer vaccinators. Mostly all the vaccinators are volunteers. Also to those working the front desk as screeners and greeters to make sure that people have filled out their forms properly. It's been a tremendous community effort that it could not have been possible without the multitude of volunteers who have participated. And I think the community should be very proud of its performance. As I've said before, we have a small staff here, 2 full-time people. Our admin's been out and just came back in mid-March, and to accomplish this 5,400 vaccines in this period of time is really quite an accomplishment. Another additional comment that I wanted to make, of course, is the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which we had been distributing, is on hold until further notice, hopefully by the end of the week. We had distributed out of the 5,400, 720 were Johnson & Johnson. So we're holding on to what we have left. Will not be issuing any of that vaccine until we're cleared by CDC and the State Department of Health. The school clinics will be held, as I said, the first one's going to be May 1st, and that will be at the former Lord and Taylor in Stamford. That's my report in addition to what I submitted. So if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
David, I just wanted to add that David told me on Monday that the highest number of shots ever given prior to this record of 5,600 now was 400 in a full year. So in the first quarter, you've already done what, 5,400, now you're up to 5,600. It's remarkable, and I think you're absolutely right. It's a big plus for the community to have all those volunteers and your staff to make this thing work. Well done. I'm sorry.
Thank you, and I'll
Krista?
pass that along.
Yes, thanks so much for your report, David. 2 questions regarding vaccinations. The first being, could you update us as to the role? We haven't heard EverPoint mentioned, though it was mentioned quite a bit when we brought them on for the testing that we thought would be instrumental in the vaccination. Could you just quickly say, are they just not, or what happened with EverPoint?
It has to do with where DPH is sending the vaccine.
Okay.
Early on, we did inquire about having them be our basically vaccine provider to the community, and the state is just restricting who gets vaccine, and providers are not getting it.
Fair enough.
The larger clinics are getting it.
Fair enough. No, that makes sense. Then my second question is in regard to the rollout for the 16 to 18 group now with the high school age students. Is there a way in which we could send out a release to offer this to all Darian residents who are 18 and not restrict it to those students who are enrolled in the Darian high school?
Well, it was mentioned in the code red. I was just on a conference call with the State Department of Education and DPH, where the outreach is going to be to the private schools themselves to say that they can reach out to these providers. It could be Walgreens, so that they could get their students vaccinated. As far as getting, we did reach out to the media, to the newspaper, and we certainly could do more of that.
Well, just looking at the release, it indicates Darian High School class of 21. Perhaps we could just put something on the town site that indicates any Darian resident, whatever age group you want to specify.
Yeah, now that it's open to over 16, and it's not even It's interesting because the way the SDE presented it this morning was that this rollout was indeed intended for public schools. And then they realized, well, we really do have to include this other demographic in the vaccine outreach. So yes, we can add that, and we'll clarify our website.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anything else for David? Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
Then we'll go to the assessor, Tony Homicki.
Good morning, all. I think my report speaks for itself. We had a good quarter. Past quarter, I did include the grand list details, some of the changes that were made, the top 20 taxpayer list. I've also want to highlight that we are maintaining our elderly property tax relief homeowners over the age of 65 whose incomes are under 54,800 or 46,600 are eligible for property tax relief. And the governor has allowed us to roll over last year's benefits to these seniors for those that don't want to, because of the COVID protocols, they don't want to come to the office or their income hasn't changed much. So those are the highlights of the report, and I welcome any questions.
Are there any questions for Tony? Tony, I'm sure you'll take note of the Senate Bill 1105 about getting rid of the motor vehicle tax or making it tax exempt property. Good luck with that one.
We're monitoring all of those, Kip. Thanks. And Kip, with your question, I'm sorry I confused your quick questions with a lengthy answer. So I'll be a little bit more efficient next time.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. For the last time at a joint department heads meeting, Mr. Solheim from building.
Okay, as you can see with my report, we started very strong this first quarter, and I think you're going to see that go out throughout the year. Just an update on Walgreens. They are frantically getting ready to get opened, and we're working with the fire marshal to make that happen. And as soon as that happens, then they'll finish their demolition of their old building, and Federal will move on to their second building project, which will really kickstart that project. Other than that, I don't have anything to add in my report. I'd be glad to field any answers that you may have.
Any questions for Tony?
That's Pete.
Very busy time. Thank you. Kate, go ahead.
Okay, next will be post 53, Joe Larchevek.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I have nothing new to add to my report. I would just like to piggyback off of what David mentioned about the vaccine clinics. Post has been very proud to partner with the health department. We've provided over 20 EMTs to help with the vaccination process. It's gone extremely well, and they continue to serve every week there. So as for our members, over 95% of eligible folks are vaccinated or in the process of waiting for their second shot. So that's very advantageous for us to continue to maintain a high level of vigilance when it comes to all of our COVID protocols. We have a lot of PPE in place. So we're still being very strict with that, but happy to see that most of our members are going to be vaccinated and better protected in the near future. So other than that, not much else to add, so I'll take any questions.
Any questions? Hearing none. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mark McEwen, Emergency Management.
Good morning, everyone. The only thing I'd like to draw attention to is that we, with the Red Cross, conducted a shelter survey of the Mather Community Center and the Town Hall property to estimate the number of shelteries that the Town Hall and Mather Center could provide. I don't have the official document back from Red Cross, but it looks like about 220 people, non-COVID times, could populate that as a shelter. And if there's any questions, the rest of my report stands as read.
Mark, I just had one question, the very last entry. What is an annual ERP meeting with Eversource? What does ERP stand for?
Emergency response plan.
Thank you.
There was a lot of angst over the August storm, and if you follow the PURA hearings, both utilities, UI and Eversource, did not shine very well during those storms, and there probably will be more to come. But they handle these meetings for the first responders and the CEOs, and it basically reviews what they've been working on for the past year in their emergency response.
Thank you. Krista.
Back on the Red Cross survey. One, do you know when you would have those final results? But more importantly, could you just comment briefly, are you pleased with that number? Is that a solution for our community? Could you give a little bit more color as to the Mather Center?
Sure. It has always been the intention of the town to provide a shelter that is not related to the school system, so that when school is in session, if it's possible, that we have our own source of a shelter. The number is significantly less than the high school and the middle school. However, it's we've never approached that in past storms, so I think it's an adequate shelter. There are a few deficiencies that may reduce that number because we don't have showers for the number of personnel that may be at the shelter for long-term sheltering needs. But food-wise and size-wise, it looks like it would work very well. Darian High School is still probably going to remain our #1 source just because of the size and the ability to shelter more people. But we have this as a resource, which is wonderful.
Fantastic. Thanks for just a little bit more color on that. It's great for the community.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Next up would be Jen Charneski from Finance.
Good morning. The only addition that I have to my report is just to give you the final information on what the Board of Finance voted on for the budget. The total budget is $152.7 million, which is a 3.51% increase, and the mill rate is 16.84, which is a 3.15% increase. They did make a couple changes to the Board of Selectmen budget. They have decided to bond the sidewalk rehabilitation program. They're eliminating the Public Works Equipment Replacement Reserve contribution. We were able to eliminate the police department server project because IT can do it this year with available funds. And then there were a couple minor adjustments, one to planning and zoning salaries because of a retirement, and an adjustment to the library to bring their request down a couple $1,000s to their final request. You will have a couple of items coming to you for your action to finish up the budget process, the bonding resolutions, as well as a transfer from fund balance to the capital reserve fund.
Are there any questions for Jen?
Jen, can you elaborate what happened with the library?
Their final request was about $2,100 less than what we had put in at Kate's level that was working through the budget. So Kira noticed that there was a minor difference and she just brought it up and we made the adjustment at the Board of Finance level.
Did you say what area that was? I'm sorry, I didn't notice that. So after we approved it,
I don't know what area it was in, but it was about $2,100 less than what went through at your level.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Jen, I just had one question on your performance measures, and that was under percentage of invoices paid electronically. It's anticipated you'll pay 25%, but your year-to-date, which is through the first 3 quarters, are 8.34%. Is that a misnomer or an error?
The anticipated number is what was in the budget document for 2020, 2021. And at that time, we were expecting to be able to do an RFP for an e-payables program, just because operationally, we've been forced to split our time in the office. We haven't been able to do that. So we're going to be lower than that this year, but then we should be able to do our RFP and get an e-payables program in place for next year.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That makes sense. Any other questions for Jen? Okay, Captain. Kate?
Okay, next up is Bobby Bush, Fire Marshal.
Morning, all. My report stands. I just want to echo Pete's comments. We are working diligently to get Walgreens their temporary CO so that they can open the store, and other projects are zooming along and plan reviews are coming in. It's going to be a very busy couple of years here, and I will take anybody's questions.
Any questions? Krista?
All right, is there any update on the inspections for the assisted living facilities?
We have not gone back into the individual living units in the assisted living facilities. Most likely, once everything opens up again, we will, want to ensure that all the residents are safely vaccinated so that they feel secure in the fact that we're going to be coming in, and that they'll know that our entire staff is fully vaccinated.
So is your staff entirely vaccinated now?
Yes, everybody in our office is fully vaccinated. The facilities get inspected, just the individual living unit is where we have not been entering.
Is that something you hope to be able to resume?
Absolutely.
And then will the facilities then give you the okay, or how? I'm still a little confused how that's going to roll out.
It's going to be a comfort level with each facility to make sure that the residents are comfortable with us returning to going within their individual living units.
Okay, thank you.
Before we move on, there's one thing I should have mentioned with Jen's report. Jen had mentioned that the town has received $2,145,000 odd additional funds under the American Rescue Plan. I believe that we're still waiting, if I'm right on this, Jen, for Treasury Department guidelines as to how we can spend that. We don't have those yet, correct?
Correct. We are still waiting. They have up until the day that they're supposed to distribute funds to provide additional guidance.
Okay.
They've given some very broad guidance, so we know some broad parameters,
right?
But we need more specifics.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I added that because Jamie updated me on that.
If we don't yet know what we can use the funds for, that's not incorporated in the current proposed budget, right, Jen?
Correct.
Well,
there is nothing in
anyway.
the proposed budget because the guidance that we have received didn't really lend itself to being able to use anything in the budget.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Next up, you have Human Resources, Lori Dunn.
Good morning. Springtime is always busy for Human Resources, so I do have a couple of updates. We have begun the performance evaluation process for our town hall union employees, our non-represented employees, and our permanent part-time employees. So department heads are busy working on that right now as that process starts. Human Resources is also getting ready for the benefits open enrollment, which happens annually in May. And that entire process will be online this year. And there are no substantial benefit changes, so we expect that process to go smoothly. And lastly, we are about to start negotiations with the Town Hall Employees Union. That, in addition to what I have already reported, pretty much covers the status of the Human Resources Department right now. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Seeing no questions, thank you, Lori. I guess we can move on.
Okay, Human Services, Allie Ramstick.
Good morning. My report pretty much stands for itself. As you can see, we had an unusual very unusually busy quarter. We assisted the health department in scheduling anyone over 65 for their vaccines. So Cynthia and I personally spoke to the individuals, and we did over 1,000 appointments, which was a remarkable, an amazing experience for all of us to be involved. And again, as David said, thank you so much to all the volunteers. It could not have been accomplished without all of their help. And that's about it. If anyone has any other questions.
I'd just like to compliment you for getting approved or recertified for the Medicare Choices program. I know that's very important for our senior citizens, and I'm glad you were both able to do it.
Thank you.
Anything else for Allie? Thank you, Allie.
Okay, George Ariola from IT.
Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's well. Just continuing with a lot of the upgrades of our servers and equipment. That's pretty much it. If you guys don't have any more questions, I'll be happy to answer.
George, you know I have to ask, what is the hyper-converged market space that Nutanix is filling?
I'm sorry, I had a buzz on my phone. You were asking what was the
hyper-converged, you call it hyper-converged market space, which the Nutanix server is a leader in. What in devil's name is that?
You know, I know Jeff put this together. I'm guessing only that it has to do with a lot of our filtering capabilities on the system in terms of trying to weed out a lot of the things that are going across our network to ensure that a lot of things aren't getting through.
Okay.
I'll mention it to him.
It sounds like a new kind of whiz bang. I'm just kind of interested in that. Right? Not to worry, we won't stop it. We won't slow the process now. Thank you.
Okay.
Next is Pam Gary from Parks and Rec.
Good morning, everybody. My report stands as is, but I will highlight that it is an extremely busy time. A lot of moving pieces here in our department. We are up over 200% in programming. And also highlight that the security gate guards at the beaches have started at Weed Beach, and they will start at Pear Tree on Memorial Day weekend. And I'll also highlight that the gift for the final approval for the gift of the pickleball courts at Cherry Lawn have been approved last night. So that was a long process. It's exciting. We should get started in May and be finished by June. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I think we just like saying pickleball. Instead of it every meeting.
Hey, Pam, this is David. It looks like NG Entertainment is going to be the new vendor for the beaches. Do they operate any other facilities around that we might know? Because NG Entertainment's not a household name.
Norotan Yacht Club.
Okay.
She's the concession at that place, yes.
And did they give you any idea about their thoughts on menu or options or changes from what the prior vendor was going to offer?
Yes, we're working on the menu currently, and I'll be meeting with her next week to finalize. We're looking to get into like a little healthier, but have standard concession along with some healthier food choices, as well as some Friday and Saturday night specials.
That'd be great. I'm sure the residents will really appreciate that.
I think she's going to do a great job.
I have one last thing to ask because you know, I've had residents ask me about this. While we are waiting to determine what the final project or when the project at Pear Tree is going to continue, is there any plan or are there any steps that we can take to improve the safety, functionality, and appearance of the bathrooms that are currently there?
Currently, I have our park supervisor getting estimates on changing out toilets, changing out sinks, getting the facility painted inside, and a few additional improvements on the exterior. But we're trying to get a total number because that's not been budgeted for to see whether or not by the year's end of the budget can handle those changes.
Okay, that's great because I know that folks would like those to be a little more user friendly, I guess I'll call it. Thanks for that.
I will add that the Parks and Recreation Commission, has asked to investigate these type of changes, but it's also very has to be the consideration of how much they actually put into that building.
No, I remember the limits from the prior conversations, and I'll just say that for myself at least, you'll have one friendly voice on the Board of Selectmen if you need to come to us for some cash to do that.
Thank you.
Sarah.
Pam, really quickly, I do see that you're going to have the guard starting at Weed Beach on Monday, April 19th, which is today. And they don't start at Pear Tree until the 28th, which is Memorial Day weekend. Why the difference?
Historically, it's always been Weed Beach starting earlier due to the fact that it's much busier there. We have the playground and the paddle courts, and we open up the bathrooms earlier. We did look, it has been a question at the commission level about opening up at the same time, but unfortunately this year, we wouldn't have the funding to start Pear Tree. So I think moving forward, if that's something that the commission would like to see us do, we have to budget for it.
Thank you.
Up 200%, is that right, Pam? Did I hear?
That's correct. We are, it's amazing. It's even the paddle courts alone, the highest revenue I've seen is just under 70,000. We're well over 100,000.
No, I saw that. Good.
Beaches are packed all the time. We're very grateful.
Okay. Anything else? Krista?
Yeah, Pam, I have a couple of questions. Thanks, Kip. In line with the conversation about Pear Tree and Weed Beach, even though the security guards are going in, are passes on the cars required now, or could you just elaborate on the status of that?
No, last year's beach stickers are good until Memorial Weekend, but people are currently buying new ones now.
Okay, and if you don't have a 2020 sticker, you may not drive in.
Correct.
Okay, and on both locations?
No, because the security guard is not at Pear Tree until Memorial Weekend.
Okay, so the security guard is enforcing the 2020 permits currently.
Correct, at Weed Beach.
At Weed Beach, and when in place at Pear Tree, will start enforcing. Well, at that point, it will be
right. The Memorial Weekend.
Memorial Weekend. Second question: looking at the waiting list for the kayaks, was there any conversation about building more or space? It's quite a waiting list.
In the last 3 years, we have continued to add kayak racks to both locations. We added 2 more this year and still have over 100 people on the waiting list.
Is there a way in which to bring down that waiting list to what I would consider a more manageable level, or are we just out of space, or what is your thought with that issue moving forward?
My initial thought at Pear Tree is I don't believe we have any more real estate there for additional racks without taking away beach space. I believe at Weed Beach, we do have some additional room to add a few more racks, but it's such high demand that we have to consider that moving forward.
Would that be something for the following year's budget then, or is that something you could do in either this or next year's budget?
It will definitely have to be next year's budget, or even moving forward for the winter of 2022. Our public works crew built the last 4.
Oh, that's great.
As a winter project, yes.
And then my last question, depending upon the vote on May 10th, what would your ETA on the Cherry Lawn Courts be?
Most likely the fall is what I'm thinking.
Perfect. Okay.
Early
Great.
fall.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Pam. And now for somebody who's doing nothing at all, planning and zoning.
Good morning, everyone. Just call your attention to page 1 of the report, which we talk about the conversion of our CityView permitting software to OpenGov. We're going to have training on May 21st and then go live soon after that. So spend a lot of time and effort preparing for that and getting ready for that conversion. Happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Do you have time to answer any questions? I don't think so.
Okay, real quickly, do you have a date on the public hearing for the inclusionary zoning hearings?
Tentatively May 4th. We'll know better in a couple of days, but tentatively May 4th.
And you'll do all 3 of them that night, that one hearing?
Yes, the Planning and Zoning Commission has put together 3 proposals. They will all be on for the same night. One is related to required parking for multifamily housing. One is relative to elimination of minimum apartment sizes in certain zoning districts. And as you mentioned, the third is increasing the requirement on the number of affordable units that need to be constructed as part of inclusionary zoning. Tentatively scheduled for May 4th. 99% sure we'll have the hearing on that date.
Okay, great. Just so to give the public enough time.
Anything else for Jeremy? Thank you.
Thank you all.
Next up would be Don Anderson, Police Department.
Good morning, all. I, for one, look forward to getting back in person at some point. Hopefully next quarter we can be back together. I hope you found the report to be comprehensive and informative. And one thing I would like to point out, you probably saw our new police fleet being deployed with the new graphics. It's been universally highly received. I do think it is, the police department is the most highly visible representative arm of government, that it does present a professional image for the town. One thing I'd also like to note is the retirement of Officer Kerry Perone during the quarter. And since this report was generated, Lieutenant George Vitone will be retiring on May 1st. So the changing of the guard of long-term employees continues. I do expect that to continue in the years to come. Both of those officers did fine service for the town for many, many years. I'd like to just to note their service. And the only other thing that we have is continuing to unlock car entries across our town. And it's problematic, and I know I sound like a broken record, but I do want to bring it to the forefront every time. It's something I'm not happy with. It's certainly something our officers are not happy with. And in some cases, the same car was stolen twice out of the same driveway with the keys in it both times and recovered in the same town. So I'm not sure exactly what more I can do, but we're continuing with innovative ideas over the overnight hours to try to apprehend these folks. The state legislators have introduced some bills that may give us some relief from these juvenile folks that keep coming to do this, including the potential for having to wear an ankle bracelet until their cases are adjudicated, because it is the same widespread group of kids that are doing this over and over and over again. So we are working on that. I'm glad to take any questions from any member of the Board of Selectmen or anyone else on the call as far as police operations.
Hey, Chief,
Sarah?
I'm sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I just wanted to ask, how's the building doing between the HVAC and the sewer? Everything seems to be copacetic, yes?
I'm happy to report that I have no major maladies to report on the building. The DPW is here today for us, taking out our storm sewers that have started to cave in the parking lot. So they're doing that today. The other issues have been largely resolved. HVAC is still not quite 100%. The building access system is just about done. And I look forward in the next few quarters to not be reporting anything building wise.
Fantastic.
David, you were up next.
Yeah, I'm just curious for my education, what is the table of general orders? And it looks like y'all are undertaking a review. So is there any framework you can give us for how long or anything in particular that we might look for to change?
Yeah, the table of general orders is the operations and administrating manual of the department. It gives all our rules and regulations. It gives all our operating procedures. It can certainly be addressed and released for public review. There's some parts that have to be redacted for police operations and security measures, but it's basically how we do business at the police department. We're required to do for accreditation a comprehensive review of those general orders on a regular basis. Some of these general orders were still under the signature of Chief Lavello, who was 2 chiefs back. So to ensure that we are always on best practice and we are always up to date with state statute and post-C regulations, we do on a regular basis review our general orders and make changes. Those are all approved by the police commission when we do that.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions?
Quickly, thanks so much for your report, Chief. Could you comment briefly on you referenced the Connecticut Police Accountability Bill, revisions, language that's being changed, and how what you're seeing now corresponds or doesn't correspond to your practices here in Darien?
Well, a lot of things that were brought forth in the police accountability bill, and I've said this to the Board of Selectmen and to the police commission many times, we're above the curve on a lot of these things. We're not catching up with best practice. We're usually leading the charge on best practice. And clearly I maintain that we are and have been meeting every one of these new things in the state of Connecticut we have done already. It does codify for a little bit different the way police departments across the state operate. I'll make no bones there. It does change things. But I do think that we're highly trained and our officers are above the curve to make sure that some of these things don't happen here. There's a reason why it doesn't happen here, and that is the backing of town government officials, including the budget process for training that we do. We receive a high level of training, and we are always much appreciative of that. You get bang for the buck when you have officers that are highly trained, highly skilled. You don't end up on the news.
Perfect. All right, great. Thank you very much. I think that was important to share even once again to get that message out. Thanks.
Thank you, Chief.
Next up is Ed Gentile, Public Works.
Good morning. Nothing as no updates to the report as submitted. As usual, it's full and complete on our past work for the last 3 months, and here to answer any questions you may have.
Ed, do you think that the uptick in solid waste is because the swap shop has had limited hours?
I think it may have a small effect, Kip. I think that the major reason is that there's a lot of the residents are all home right now. If you go back and you'll see there's been an uptick of anywhere between 30 to 40 tons per month. I am looking at that one because that's going to impact my overall budget for that line item. I've been watching it pretty carefully. It's something that hopefully when everything opens up and people go back to work and everybody's back in school, that should drop back down to where it was previous years.
You're saying that people have been going through their basements and cleaning them out.
I just think that they're doing a lot of things at home and throwing stuff away at home and rather than at school or at work. But yeah, we could throw the attic and the basement in there too.
Okay. Any questions for Ed?
And I was just wondering if you've had any update regarding the Darian Railroad Station platform and elevator project.
I do. I did put in the report where we stand currently, but there's been some additional, conversations. I think I can't fit into the report, but it's we are working on the shelter additions. I've already got the preliminary layouts from them. They are looking to get me some architectural reviews to look at different types of shelters. They're trying to get everything wrapped up and part of the 90% when it comes out in September. So they are going to push this through the summer to see if we can get our project for the shelters included and finalized so that we don't impact their schedule right now.
And when do they expect to actually move forward?
I'm thinking this time next year, they're going to look to start this project. That was the projected schedule at this point.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Any more questions for Ed?
Thank you for all you do.
Next would be the registrars of voters, John Vesey and Susan Gray.
Good morning. Our report basically stands as it's written. Just want to point out that our office is spending quite a bit of time on keeping our records updated. We've had a lot of changes and we're trying to keep up with that. And Susan and I are taking the time to get our records straight and our equipment serviced and ready for the next election, whenever that will be. So, any questions on any of that? No.
No question.
Okay.
No questions. Thank you very much then.
Okay.
Then Beth Paris, Senior Center.
Good morning. I have nothing to add to my report. We are getting ready for spring and summer outside events. And we are looking at incrementally opening very slowly in June, probably the week of June 7th. So working on a reopening plan that complies with CDC guidelines and what our town is doing right now.
I think it's great work that you've been doing through this COVID shutdown. Obviously, a lot been going on.
Thank you, Kip. A lot of people are participating virtually that I never thought would, and we were going to continue with virtual programming and in-house programming moving forward, and especially as we open incrementally. So it's been really, really great. And I'm telling you, grabbing the lunch, the drive-through lunch program now is averaging about 45 people a day. All Darian residents, that's one program that we're keeping just for Darian residents only. And at our bigger events, which we're having our first outside entertainment on Friday, we have 70 folks coming through for lunch and 35 people that are going to be staying outside that we're going to socially distance, mask, and provide chairs for. So we'll see how that goes. But everybody come back.
Great stuff. Great stuff.
Thanks.
Anything else for Beth?
Yes, Beth, during the budget season, we spoke about the way in which the senior center works with residents versus non-residents. You've just gave an example here where residents, the lunch is only available to Darian residents. Has there been any more thought as to how you're going to address that as you roll open more with programs in place on site?
Yes, we're going to continue with which we've always done with Darian, because of the incremental opening is going to require registration or appointments depending on what the activity or the service is. Darian residents will have priorities. They will have a couple more weeks on our members that are non-residents in order to get signed up and come in by appointment or by reservation. So that we'll continue that. And our members that have been with us for a long time that are non-residents are used to that. So we shouldn't have any trouble with it. It's just a matter as we open, that's what we want to give our residents the priority. And I think everybody's pretty understandable for that. So.
We also talked more about a tiered pricing or membership, different membership levels. Where does that stand?
Kate and I need to work on that a little bit more. I think when we get more to full open, I think we'll probably be ready to address that more accurately.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kathy Larkins, the tax collector.
Good morning. The only update I have is that collections through mid-April continue to be on target with the prior year. The collection rate currently stands at 99.4%. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
It looks like the deferred program worked out very well.
Yes.
Excellent. Any questions for Kathy?
Okay, next would be the treasurer, Joan Hendrickson.
Yes, good morning. I do have one update. New numbers were sent up to Jamie, and the new portfolio was sent up. As of the end of March, I have made my budget, and my general fund budget was $125,000. My actual numbers are $126,530.63. So hopefully I will be earning a little bit more to put in the general fund by fiscal year end in June 2021.
Joan, could you just explain the budget for the total town funds? I forgot what that was all about. Is against the 124?
Actually, is Jen still on? Because there was an issue. Total town funds is the general fund plus other capital funds, and there was a miscalculation in the capital funds, which caused it to be under what it should have been. And again, that is something I think she can explain to you better than I can because it comes from her office.
Yeah, so the total town funds, we do allocate interest based on funds, the balance in various funds. The most significant after the general fund is our reserve for capital non-recurring, but there are a few other funds that get interest allocated as well. What Joan was referring to on the capital fund was in the 21 budget. Initially, when we were putting the budget together, it was pre-COVID and we were carrying $100,000 budget for interest. COVID hit, we adjusted in the general fund. We didn't adjust in the capital fund. We missed that as part of the 21 budget. So it's about $90,000 more than it should have been for the budget in the capital fund, but that's corrected in fiscal 22.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and last up would be Alicia Sillers from the Youth Commission.
Good morning. The only comment that I'm going to make is that the governor's announcement yesterday was very encouraging. I think that the direct impact that it could have on the youth department is whether or not he repeals his state of emergency. As I believe that is in effect until May 20th. Correct me if I'm wrong. And what that means is that the Office of Early Childhood is still the overarching governing agency for all camps, licensed private and municipal camps during this COVID time. So, if he relaxes that, then the Office of Early Childhood, I believe, would no longer be the overarching agency for municipal summer programs. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions? Kate, did you skip over the town clerk office?
Yes, because we don't currently have a town clerk.
Okay.
If you have a question that you would like me to, I don't know that I can answer.
I just noticed that the deeds are up by 43% on the first quarter alone, which obviously indicates a very active real estate market, which has shown itself in planning and zoning as well.
Yeah, I think we, like many other suburbs of New York City, are experiencing a robust real estate market.
Yeah. Okay. No other question, Krista?
Just back on the Youth Commission, if the executive order does change, whereby the Office of Early Childhood is no longer the governing body, how would that affect your work then, Alicia? Could you just elaborate a little bit?
Certainly. The Office of Early Childhood is, we are obligated to follow their COVID guidelines. Their model is childcare facility, and so they're the ones who have mandated cohort sizing and certain protocols that we are following, that we followed last year. Like we've all experienced, those continuously change. They've been really great touchstones in terms of guidance, but then we would be no longer obligated to follow any guidelines that they have. I'm not certain that they would, that doesn't mean that we wouldn't take into consideration their recommendations, but that would be the impact.
But you can still operate even with, as they state forth, groups of up to 16.
We can operate with groups of up to 20. That's the cohort size. We have elected to limit ours currently to 16 for a number of reasons. But the social distancing of the groups may be relaxed. There are, it's kind of real time. if you will, coupled with hurry up and wait. So, you know, it's a bit of a oxymoron. But, you know, we had a tremendously successful modified program last year. And this too will be a modification. I think that it's going to be a hybrid of what we did last year and what we've done in years prior. We are working on field trip destinations. Interestingly enough, it's my understanding through speaking with the busing company a few months ago that there was never an executive order on transportation. So, you know, if no one would do this, but you could pack a bus full. But the guidelines coming from the OEC and the ACA are suggesting otherwise, and common sense, which would as well.
All right, so you're going to be operating, as we can see here, a form of day camps at least.
Absolutely.
With area residents, which is wonderful.
Yep.
Sarah, you had a question?
Yep. Alicia, how's the registration going for the camps this summer?
It's going great, actually. The capacity is smaller than it's been in the past for a number of reasons. Spacing, staffing, cohorting. But our enrollment is 70% of what it was March 20th a year ago. So March 20th, we were at something like 257. And we are currently at, 357, something like that. And we're currently at 227. You know, I'm encouraged. Interestingly, staffing is a challenge, but my peer professionals nationwide are experiencing this. And no, I have a very high standard, and I need more than a young person with a pulse. You know, it's interesting that I'm not being inundated with applications. That's not suggesting that I'll go out and tell anybody that you know to apply for a job. They really have to have a certain level of integrity and enthusiasm and responsibility. So yeah, we'll get there. We always do. We always do. It certainly will make Karen Dunn's job harder in human resources. But, you know, she and I work very closely in terms of staffing and payroll and employee activation and all of those steps.
All right. I think this ends our department head meeting. I want to thank everybody for being here today and giving your reports. So, Kate, we're going to move on to the Board of Selectmen meeting.
Yes, we are.
Well,
so I guess I'm up first with the my report. So I just want to bring up two things.
Do I have to call the meeting to order first?
You should call, yes, call the meeting to order. It's 9:30.
I just thought we'd do that. It's 9:30. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. And the first order of business will be Kate Bush.
So we are looking at moving to in-person meetings. Jamie and I have had some discussions about the items that we need to consider. And I need to have some discussions with the Director of Public Health, but I want you to be aware that that is on our radar. And I think this was likely in Ed's report, but just a reminder that the stairs the concrete stairs leading from the lower parking lot up to the circle will be replaced beginning May 13th. And then last, going back to meetings actually, we've also talked about perhaps the next joint department heads meeting, we will do the regular business first and then move to the department head reports. That, you know, today's a great example of, you know, the Board of Ed having to wait through all those reports. So we're talking about the possibility of changing the order around if the Board of Selectmen is agreeable. And that's it.
Thank you. Board liaison reports, anything from Sarah?
I have a Thriving Youth Task Force update. The last Thriving Youth Task Force meeting was on April 8th. The group discussed the community asset survey that the Darian Public Schools recently administered on behalf of the Community Fund, and the data will be available to the town in a few months. A small committee, in addition to a consultant, will be going through the data to determine some trends. The past year's events will be interesting to analyze as it affected our youth in mental health and substance abuse, and we will be looking to determine what needs our youth will face. The Thriving Youth Executive Board will be working to apply for another substance abuse prevention grant. Lastly, the group reviewed a logic model exercise regarding alcohol and marijuana use. And then the next meeting will be on May 20th.
Thank you. David, you have anything for the blight? Krista, anything from the beach project? You're mute.
No, the committee has not met. No, thank you though.
From the Oxford School Development Group, we're just continuing our construction going forward. We did not have a quorum for our last week's regular meeting, so we're having a special meeting this week to approve the monthly pay package for all the work that was done in March. I would say that we're on time with our schedule so far, which is good news, even given some of the winter weather, which slowed us down a bit. We're moving forward with our easement with Eversource and putting in the underground conduit cable for our power. We've had some change orders, and most of them, believe it or not, have been savings rather than additional spending, which is good news. So I think that we're on target, and we are, I think, in control of the project. I don't mean the committee as much as the contractors and everybody who's really overseeing this project. I'm rather pleased that it's moving along. Well, that's my report. Kate, are there any public comments? You're mute.
Sorry, I was taking notes on your report as you gave it. I haven't received any in advance of the meeting, so if there's anybody present who would like to make a comment, they should let us know through the chat function.
Okay. So
I'm seeing nothing, so I think you're good to go.
So for our first bit of old business, we're going to discuss, take action on a request from the Board of Education for the care and custody and control of the 35 Leroy basement area. And we have with us today Chairman of the Board of Education, and Dr. Adley has leaped back into the fray here. Now, I think you've all received a copy of the picture of the basement, and maybe you guys would either Duke or Dr. Adley like to speak about this.
Sure. Thank you, Acting Chairman, and Kate, thank you, and members of the Board of Selectmen. I appreciate the opportunity to revisit this issue. I want to thank Kate and Jamie for visiting to actually see the site and revisit the site in terms of square footage and other spaces. And we appreciate the opportunity of acquiring the entire basement. And in order to do that, there was other spaces that we would need to include in the square footage. And I'll say this to Kate, that if we're comparing what the status is now versus what is proposed, if you look at the status of it right now, it would probably be around 20 square feet in total. If you're looking at it as it was renovated, there's a wee discrepancy. There would be 39 square feet. It's just the way they've reconfigured some of the spacing for the bathroom and for the storage space. But essentially, we are actually utilizing at this particular point one of the larger spaces that would acquire. That's the 1,310 square feet, which is really a lot of storage already in there. So with that, we'd be come before you to request the entire use of the basement. It seems that seems to be a reasonable thing to actually do at this particular point, given how much we're actually using and how much we're requesting. We certainly can use that. We have certainly no plan, the immediate plan for the renovation of any other spots other than what was presented to the Board of Education and communicated to the Board of Selectmen. So with that, I'm happy to answer questions. I don't know if the chairman wants to say anything or not. Mr. Lynch is also with me, our facilities director, but I'm happy to open it up and maybe Kate can comment further.
Jamie and I did go and visit the space, and we were primarily looking at the large, what used to be the big meeting room, that 1,300 square foot space, to see if it made sense for us to retain control of some of that to be able to be used for town storage. And our feeling after visiting the site was, due to the sensitivity of the types of documents the Board of Ed might be storing there, the type of sensitivity of some of the documents that we might be storing there, it did not make sense for us to put anything there. The other issue, the square footage, Mike and I went back and forth yesterday with, looking at the schematics and coming up with the different numbers. My suggestion would be that the resolution should say 3039, because that is the total that will be utilized based on the drawings from Silver Petruccelli. Right now, as the space exists, it's 3020. I don't know how we create the additional 19 square feet, but I would go with the higher number for the resolution.
Kate, the resolution I have in my hand that was sent out, it's talking about 2750. You're saying that should be 1339.
3039.
3039. Okay. That would cover the entire basement, correct?
Right. They already have control of some of the basement.
Right.
So this is the additional space that they would be given control of.
Is there any more discussion on this issue? Any more questions?
I think this makes sense.
Okay, hearing none. We have I move to have a resolution in front of the Board of Selectmen, which is basically, should we read the whole resolution, Kate? Is that the appropriate thing to do?
That's up to you.
Waiving of the reading. We can waive it.
And waive the reading of, except that the resolution should now say in the third paragraph and in the last paragraph, it should have 3039 square feet rather than the 2750. Okay.
Perhaps should we vote to amend the resolution?
No, you don't have to amend the resolution, but because it hasn't actually been presented as such, but I think the resolution as written with that adjustment is fine.
Okay. So is there a motion to put forward this resolution? So moved by Sarah. Second?
Krista.
Krista, okay. Is there any more discussion on the matter? If all voting in favor, please, with that amendment of the 3039 square feet versus 2750, all in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Any abstaining? The motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Welcome.
Much appreciated.
That makes sense.
Take care.
All right. The next item of business is a transfer. This is a transfer from an account to be determined by the Board of Finance. That's why it says PBD to the Highland Farm account of $46,059. The reasons are spelled out here. We're going to be, we have a project overrun in the development of the field, and also we want to have funds to be having the architect and landscape architect to continue to work with the town on getting approval from the neighbors, a sensitive topic. Kate, is there anything else you want to add to this particular resolution or this transfer?
Yeah, the only thing I want to say is that the reason for why you might see is a delay between the time that the parking lots were constructed is we were waiting to be certain we were going to get the state grant. It took a while for the state to award the grant, and then it took some more time for them to get to us with all the other language, and we still haven't actually received the contract, but I have communication from that they have approved our scope, so we will be receiving the contract. So we're confident that we'll go forward, and the funds from the state will be used to do the actual landscaping. You know, we wanted to be sure we had that funding in place before we asked for anything additional. And then we do want Weston and Sampson to assist us with the neighbor interactions, with putting together the bid package for the actual work, because we want to design the bid with some add alternates to allow us to drop sections if we don't have the funding for it. And they will assist us in the actual picking of the trees, picking of the shrubs to make sure that we're getting the right stuff in there, and then monitoring the project as it goes to make sure that the successful bidder is implementing the project in the way we want it. We don't have the expertise in-house to do that. I do hope to get down, you know, reduce the cost of Weston and Sampson's involvement, but so this would be the max that we should be looking at.
Okay, so there's really two parts here. The first, for the 46,059 transfer, the first part is the overrun, which was really had two segments to it. One was more soil had to be removed than we initially planned, but the pathway had to be built with a solid material rather than a gravel material, because wheelchairs couldn't possibly
wouldn't go through
couldn't go through it, which makes great sense. And the other part is to put money aside, 22,600, for Weston and Sampson's continued work in getting approval of the actual planning plan with our neighbors. Again, you're going to do it with adult, and so that you can cut back if you need to bring use the steep grant to basically do all the landscaping. Are there any more questions about this particular transfer? Sarah?
The 22.6 seems high, and I just was curious, is that just for Weston and Sampson? It's not for any of the landscaping, it's literally just for them?
That's just for Weston and Sampson, and like I said, I'm going to try and get that down, but a good portion of that is for to have them be construction managers, for project managers, which I think we can reduce that, but I wanted to get moving forward.
Any other questions?
Just general regarding expenses related to Highland Farm, the maintenance of the field itself, is that out of the Park and Rec budget?
Yes, it is.
Okay, just want to clarify. Thank you.
And Kate, if this moves forward, what is the expected timeline for the remainder of the project there?
You know, some of that, David, is going to be impacted by planting seasons. So our we've already notified planning and zoning that we'd like a little bit of an extension to the fall, because some things that we would want to plant won't survive if we do it in the, you know, like May or June. We'll want to be planting them in September or October. So the fall is the answer.
And so the status of the shed would also be delayed?
The shed is not planned at this time.
Oh, we took that out.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know that we'll ever put it in.
All right, and just to refresh my memory, is there some screening for the proposed temporary porta potties that will be up there?
You know, I'd have to look at it. If they put them all in the same place all the time, the screening that we're putting in should accomplish that. But I'm not sure if Parks and Rec puts it in the same place every time that they put it up there. What this will do is put screening so that the neighbor's view of the parking lots will, you know, not be all trees. I mean, not be all cars, so that there'll be trees and other shrubs, which will accomplish also screening where the porta potty would be. if it stays in one place. But we can, that's one of the things, you know, we could adjust this to make sure that if we pick a spot for where a porta potty would go all the time, to have shrubs there.
All right, I would request that you guys look into that idea, because I'm sure that the neighbors would like to have the porta potty screened for the periods of time that they happen to be up there.
Okay.
Can I just ask even a more general question? As far as the landscaping plan in general, is that the Board of Selectmen? Is that Park and Rec? Who will have final approval? Obviously, the neighbors are involved, but is that just Kate? You'll sign off on that?
Yes. Because, you know, one of the things, we'll have a design. We may not be able to implement all of the design. You know, the most important things are going to be the parking lots, screening of those, then the pollinator pathway. Then we'd also like to put in some shade trees along the walkway. We'd like
That's where I was going to get to. I personally would think that the community would benefit from some shade trees along the path.
Right. So we will do as much of that as we can until we go out to bid on all the various trees, and there will be some site work. We won't know how much of those we can do. The estimate from the $92,000 estimate assumes that we will do some of those. That's the grant, but those would be the last thing. That, you know, the doing the parking lots will be the primary, you know, the first thing that we must get done.
Just a real quick question. The first part, the 23,459, how much of that was split between the material upgrade? It was asphalt, right? That was used instead of the gravel?
Yeah, I'd have to go back, and I don't have that number in front of me.
And then
so,
the soil, that was because
the
we
soil,
didn't have the revision.
you know, I mean, the good news is we were able to take the soil off site and we have it stockpiled, and the material that we had originally purchased to do the walkway we have as well, so they can be repurposed. And our thought is to repurpose them to the Weed Beach Trail when that comes. But we don't get to, accounting wise, we don't get to take advantage of that accounting wise.
Maybe Oxford will take it.
I don't think Oxford is going to need it.
You have no idea what we're going to need.
I'm teasing. I know.
And then just more of a basic question. We can approve this with a TBD as to where these funds are coming from.
So yes, the Board of Finance really has all the power of the transfer.
So we approve in concept.
You approve in concept. They could, you know, you could put anything you want in there and they can change it. So when I discussed it with Jen, she you know, she suggested leaving that open for the Board of Finance to make their decision.
Fair enough.
You know, okay.
Fair enough.
Anything else? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the transfer of $46,059 from a fund to be determined by the Board of Finance to the Highland Farm account for the purposes as outlined in this particular document, which are $23,459 for cost overruns and $22,600 for Weston and Sampson's landscaping fees going forward. I have a motion from Krista. Do I have a second? And I have a second from David. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any negative votes? The motion is carried. Thank you. The next order of business is to review the minutes of the April 5th meeting and the special meeting. Are there any corrections or omissions or changes for the minutes? Hearing none, I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented and the special meeting minutes.
So moved.
From Krista, I'll second. All in favor? Aye. Any negative votes? Any abstentions? The motion is carried. Agenda review. Anybody have anything they want to bring up at this time? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. From Sarah, motion, second. David, all in favor, raise your hand. The motion is carried. Thank you all very much.